Welcome to Divots Skins.
Episode 7. We're laughing because I screwed up the first one. I'll put that outtake at the end. It wasn't good. But anyway, welcome everybody. So we went out today, and it was a warm one today out on Brookhaven. It was 95, 96 degrees. Luckily, it's always windy at Brookhaven. So we had a nice breeze, but man, it was warm today.
Getting hotter than Hades up here in the North Country.
It's crazy. It's funny because we have a friend of ours, Tim, who lives in North Carolina. I sent him a text and said, hey, I'm mailing this stuff back to you because I don't want it anymore. This is not fun. And he jokingly wrote back, it's cooler here. So it's crazy with this heat wave. Luckily, it's supposed to break, I think, in the next day or so.
Friday's supposed to be the last day. Tomorrow's supposed to be the last day, and then it gets down to more reasonable temperatures. But we are in July, folks, so
yeah,
it's to be expected.
Yeah, it is. And so we went out today. We played our league that we play every Thursday, and it's a 9-hole drop-in league, which is fun because we don't necessarily have to be paired with people. We get paired randomly after we play, which is kind of fun. I walked away with a birdie from last week, so that was kind of cool. And you walked away with
nice
what?
Skin. I was the lowest scoring gross player, so I didn't even know that was a category. But I saw an envelope sitting there with my name on it with some money in it, so that was always a good thing.
And it was great because it was enough money to put the money back in for this week. So this week's league really didn't cost us.
We both broke even.
Yeah. Now my shooting, on the other hand, I did not break even. It was not pretty, but it's been a struggle for me. I'll cover that later. How did you shoot?
Above my handicap. Let's put it that way. I shot a 46. Wasn't too happy about it. Nothing felt right from the get-go today. It wasn't the heat necessarily. It was what I did the last several days. I've been being a landscaper. We've been taking down a lot of trees, and I beat my body up a bit. And being the old man that I am, I went in today feeling a little stiff, and it showed itself all over the golf course. Yeah,
that is one thing with golf is sometimes your job gets in the way, and you got to deal with that.
It's a travesty.
Yeah, I know. And I can't complain because I do an office job. I sit at home behind a computer, so I don't really have any complaints. But I will say that I do crack and pop when I stand up sometimes. So that comes with age, and that kind of sucks. I can't even imagine doing what you're doing outside and being in this heat and doing trees and all that stuff. So, but we got out and played today. I think it was a fun time. It was sunny. It was beautiful, but it was warm. And we'll be looking forward for the temperatures to go back down to what should be about normal in the next couple days. So I thought we'd start out today with another question from a fan of ours. Cloud_surfer had another question for us, and here's what he had as his question. Had another unknown on the course today. Hit the driver off the tee, but lost it on impact, so I never knew where it landed or where it went. Gee, never had that happen to myself. Hit a provisional, which is really the right thing to do, off the tee, which sliced out of bounds deep into the woods. To keep pace of play, I swear I can talk. Keep pace of play, I figured I'd walk to where the provisional crossed out of bounds and take a stroke in distance where I'd be laying 5. But on my way down the fairway, he found his ball, the original ball that he shot. And his question is, how is this scored? Given the provisional went out of bounds, am I laying 1, which I think he would actually mean laying 2, now with the original ball? So what's your response to that?
This one's pretty simple, cut and dry. The USGA determines that a provisional ball doesn't become your actual ball in play until you've hit it a second time. If you found your original ball, that's the entire purpose of a provisional ball. You found your original ball, that is the ball that's legally in play. The provisional doesn't matter where it went. It could have gone into a pond 100 yards deep into the woods, or you could have dribbled it off the tee box. You do not have to play that if you found your original ball, as long as you addressed at the tee box that I'm playing a provisional versus I'm dropping 3 from the tee box.
Yeah, that is a really good, important fact to say that, because a lot of people will drop that second ball and we all think it's 3. And then they claim that it's a provisional. So it's really important to announce that, especially on tour, especially when you're playing in competition. Hopefully, Cloud_surfer, this doesn't lead to more people owing you money. I thought that comment that you left after we answered your last question about the fact that hey, I got to go back and ask my friends for the money they owe me because they were apparently breaking rules. So that was kind of funny. Hopefully it's not the same case this time. So we had a busy weekend. And I know we talked about how it was coming up in our last episode, but man, it was a busy weekend for us. And how did we start out?
Well, we started out on our USAM tour. We stopped into West Point Golf Club, I believe it's what it's called. I don't think it's a country club. West Point Military Academy is right around the corner. I believe most of the course is run by people who are part of the military academy. I'm not 100% certain, but kind of heard that through the grapevine. Beautiful course and incredibly meticulously well maintained. Some of the purest greens I've been on this year. They are the purest greens I've been on this year for sure. Probably the purest in several years that I've been on.
So what was really interesting is the good golf guys actually had a televised on the Golf Channel event at this course at West Point on Wednesday before we got there on Saturday. So the course was immaculate. The course was in beautiful shape. Their clubhouse is actually, I think, just about a year old now. Beautiful clubhouse, really modern looking, very open and spacious. Beautiful spot to be able to see. I think it was hole 17 and 18, 17 going out, 18 coming back. See the practice green, all windows in the back, so really, really beautiful building. Long rough, and it's something that we've talked about where we struggle at Brookhaven sometimes because the rough is really short. You hit off the fairway and you roll because of hard pan and short rough, and you roll into the woods. Didn't have a problem with that here because you were saying to me that was probably some of the stuff that saved you a little bit on some of your hits.
It's, as I've talked about in previous podcasts, my struggle is with the driver, keeping it really true down the middle. I have a little bit too much left to right on it, sometimes a lot too much left to right on it. And the rough, having a proper level of rough, even average level of rough, it helps hold that ball up and keep it in play. And as I've said before, I don't have a problem hitting out of rough. It's not something that hurts me. Some people it does hurt tremendously, but it doesn't hurt me a lot with my golf game. I typically just go up a club to pull it through the rough, and I don't have any issues with the club spinning, club face opening or closing on me or anything like that. So I appreciated having a heavier rough there than what we're accustomed to having at our home course at Brookhaven.
Yeah, and also the fairways were absolutely beautiful. They were like hitting off carpet. It was awesome. And I'm sure you appreciate that because you were able to take some divots when you want to take divots. Yeah, and I know you appreciate that. The views there are absolutely gorgeous. Hole one, you're up high, you're looking down at the fairway, and you see this beautiful open fairway with the mountains in the background. There were a couple other ones that you basically climb up really high and you see the mountains in the background. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I was fortunate enough to play with a guy who plays there a lot. So he was able to help us because, I'll be honest with you, there was some slope to these fairways. I'll see if I can feed into so you could see 17. 17 was like looking up a mountainside and hoping that it wouldn't roll back into the trees on the left side. It's a beautiful hole, but it was crazy to see some of those slopes. And I will say that was some of the stuff that I know I heard people were having trouble with, was that a lot of their lies were on either a slope where your feet were above the ball or your feet was below the ball. And that kind of messed with them a little bit because that's not something they're used to. They're used to playing on flatter fairways. And there were very few flat fairways on this course.
There were. It's a very short course for you at home. It's 6,007 yards, if my memory serves me right. That's the longest tee boxes there. Don't let the distance fool you. Some people would say, oh, well, then I can just grip it and rip it and shoot a low score. Not the case because of the slope, and there is a fair amount of water on the course. There's some marshes up alongside some of the fairways. There are some creeks here and there that zigzag through the course. So there's a fair amount of danger to be had there, on top of the fact that typical of a Catskill, because it was the southern Catskills is where it is up in downstate New York, or mid-state New York, if you want to call it that. and it's very wooded, just like it is up here in the Adirondack Mountains. So there's a lot of danger to be had. So regardless of the fact that it was a short course, it was a very challenging course. If you don't know how to play lies, meaning what Jake was speaking of, uphill, downhill, ball above your feet, ball below your feet. If you don't know what the ball typically does off those lies, you are going to have a problem hitting the green in regulation, regardless of how well you hit it, on your initial shot.
So let's talk about how you did. How'd you shoot? How'd you end up?
I won.
Come on, be more excited than that.
I started out horrifically. I double bogeyed the first hole. Did everything I don't want to do on a golf course, essentially, on that hole. Ended up with a double bogey. Second hole, I scratched out a bogey, if I'm not mistaken. It was off a drop, so I was happy to have a bogey as a par 5. And the rest of the day, I kind of mentally put away the scorecard, which you guys have all at home heard me say a million times, that once I feel like I started poorly, then it's time to put away the scorecard and just start hitting. And I started hitting, and I was flushing the ball quite often. My short game saved me a ton because there was a lot of times I was just long or just short of the greens. I had a lot of up and downs. Saved my goose many a time. I can't stress enough how important it is to hone in, and you can do this until you're dead, essentially. Your 100-yard and end game in golf is the most important. I believe the stats around 100 or 125 yards and something like that is 60% of your golf shots. You go back and look at your golf scores, folks, and you're going to find out that that's 100% true. Everybody gets wowed by big, long drives, but low scores come from, low number of shots inside of 125.
Yeah, and actually, we went to dinner tonight before we recorded, and the gentleman who was waiting on us tonight is also a golfer, and I think he said he was around an 8-9
handicap.
Handicap, but he was saying that he was struggling with his short game and his putting, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're a 9 handicap and you're struggling with those two? But obviously he's probably a good, and he said he was a good irons hitter, so he was able to get it in there, but he was really struggling with those two things. And we had the conversation with him about the fact that, hey, that's the most important part of your game. You got to work on those things. And so he was asking for recommendations for putters and stuff like that because he's shopping around for a putter. And so it was just really interesting to have that conversation with that young man today. And, of course, I look at him and go, I'd love to be his age and have a 9 handicap.
Yeah. A lot to work with it at that age. I'm going to guess he's his early to mid-20s, and he's already at a 9 handicap. And he said he's only been golfing regularly for about the last 4 years.
Must be nice. So I'm going to be very open and honest about my situation right now. My golf game is broken. I'm broken. I have not had a good round in a couple weeks, probably over a month at this point. I've really struggled since I won at Wacona. I'm super happy I was able to do that. But since then, I just feel like something isn't working. I really struggled at Thunderheart. As we talked about, I had a very high score on a single hole, which was rather disappointing and upsetting to me. But going into West Point, I think I psyched myself out. And here's what I'll share, is we had talked to Don Frame, who is our director for the Albany region. He actually went there last year, and I think he said he won. Mm-hmm. And so he knew the course, and he said to us, he's like, don't, exactly what you just said, don't think about the distance. It just because it's shorter doesn't mean it's easier. And I think some of that got into my head. We had talked a lot about the course. You had watched videos on the holes. We had talked about that. So did I. So I think when I got up to that first tee box, I had psyched myself out. I had already taken myself out of the tournament. And when I got up to that tee box and I basically whiffed my first drive, dribbled it off the front of the tee box into the woods. Obviously, that's frustrating in itself because it's embarrassing to do that in front of other people, but also on a tour stop. It's a regional tour stop, so it's not even my own director that's watching me make a fool of myself, which is basically what I felt like. And then I took another shot, did the same thing. That one I could find. I walked up to the corner of the tee box. I turned to Christian, who is the director for that region, And I said, do I play it here or do I go back to the tee box? And he basically looked at me and said, back to the tee box. And I think he saved me a little bit there because that would have been a tough shot to make out of the weeds and stuff that were there. Hit a decent drive after that. I got in the cart and I couldn't believe how bad my hands were shaking. And my heart was racing. And the gentleman who I was with, Josh, ironically just happened to be from the Albany region as well. I had played with him at Thunderheart. So he saw me struggle there. He's watching me struggle here. And he said to me, he's like, are you okay? And I showed him my hand, and my hand was shaking like crazy. It didn't get any better the rest of the day. I don't know what it was, and I don't know what is going on right now with my game. All I know is that I am mentally shot and burned out right now. I'm really struggling not only on tour, but I'm struggling at home at Brookhaven. Brookhaven is a tough course, and we're finding that out more and more every time we play it. But I just am having trouble controlling my swing. I'm lifting up out of the swing. My tempo's off. I know we've talked about that quite a bit. I just don't feel like I'm golfing well. And I'll be honest with you, it got to the point where West Point, so let me explain West Point. West Point, I had that struggle on the first hole, struggled with a bunch of other holes, and then it started raining. And it wasn't supposed to rain that day, at least not as much as it did. We thought it was actually going to be just a sprinkle here and there. It started raining. I don't like playing in the rain. It's uncomfortable for me. I'll share this. I wear hearing aids. It's very uncomfortable for me to be in the rain because I have to protect that investment that I have. And so I have to switch hats, so I have coverage over those hearing aids, and it just felt uncomfortable. Then we'll talk about the rough. You love the rough being that long. When you're already struggling, the last thing you want to do is try to figure out how to get out of, 2-3 inch rough?
Yeah, it was lengthy.
It was a lengthy rough. And so I couldn't keep the ball safe. I couldn't keep the ball in the fairway. My chipping was horrendous. My putting was like everything wasn't working. And I said to Brett today when we were talking about West Point, I said, I think I have amnesia because I think it was so upsetting for me that I kind of blocked out most of the holes. Now, I could tell you holes 17 and 18, I don't think I'll ever forget those because they were crazy. That was the uphill of 17 and then kind of come down to 18. But I had such frustration with this golf game that I've got right now that I've got to the point where I said to Brett I don't know, should I be on tour? Should I even be playing golf? And it's just been frustrating. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I want people out there to understand that this is golf. Golf is not easy. Golf is a mental game as much as it is a physical game. And right now, golf has got me broken. Now, I continue to do it because I think I'm a glutton for punishment, to be honest with you, because there are days that he and I look at each other and we're like, why do we do this? Like, what makes us want to do this? I think there's part of me that's like, hey, I need to take some time off. I just need to step away from it. I talked to Don, our Albany director. Again, awesome guy to talk to, awesome guy to talk golf with. And he said to me, maybe you need to take a week off. Maybe you need to step away from it for a little while. He said, I've been in that situation where things just aren't working, and I stepped away. Have I done that? Absolutely not. I love playing the game. I hate that I don't play better. And I am really struggling right now with my game, but I know that if I just keep hitting, that something will come back. And I saw a glimpse of that today. I had an opportunity where I think I triple bogeyed the first hole, which is no surprise at Brookhaven because that green is a monster and it's evil. Hole 2 is a long par. No,
Hole 2
is
a dog leg 4.
Is a par 4. I was able to par that. I was super happy with that. But I was more happy about hole 3, which is a super long par 4. And I was able to get it on the green in 3 and putt it in. And that felt really good. But then it went away. And I swear that if you are not bipolar before you play golf, you definitely will be after a few rounds of golf. because I had those 2 great holes, and then I couldn't break 100 today. And so I just feel like my game's broken right now, but I'm not willing to give up on it. I'm not willing to. Maybe I'll take that week off at some point, but right now it's summer. I want to play. I want to swing. I want to be out there. Maybe not when it's 95, 96 degrees, but I'm not willing to give up on it, and I think that's an important thing that I have within me. As much as I complain and I get angry and I say that I'm done with this, I'm not ready to be done with it. As we've talked about, I've put way too many hours into this game. I put too much money into this game. I still love it, but I hate the fact that I don't play better. And I know that so much of it right now is my mental capacity to deal with it. When I had those 2 good holes, those felt good. And I need to hold on to that. But it's tough sometimes. And I want people out there to know that it's golf. Everybody has bad rounds, has bad periods, and have bad weeks. And I'm in that right now. And luckily, I've got people like you, I've got people like Don, who encourage me to keep swinging, keep going, and keep doing it. Otherwise, I'm not sure where my clubs would be right now.
I want to make mention, too, Jake, of the fact that I'm going to throw a few names out for you people. People who are listening, people who are watching. I want to throw some names out to you. Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Jason Day. Okay, if I haven't hit a name now that you've heard of on the PGA Tour, then you don't watch much PGA Tour golf. I could even go so far as to say Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods has created a lot of his own issues, but he also was the top player in the world for many, many years, for many, many different rounds. Every one of these individuals that I just mentioned were world beaters. People thought they're going to play into their 40s and be at the top level and nobody's going to be able to beat them and they're going to win every third tournament they play. And every single one of them has, by and large, disappeared off the face of the earth when it comes to winning golf tournaments. Winning golf tournaments is difficult. It's a very difficult thing to do. These guys have tens of thousands of hours more than us amateurs hacking around at our local courses, yet they still go through these same funks that you're going through right now. And the best of them pull through. We saw it with Scottie Scheffler for most of this year. Yes, he was finishing high in the standings at all of his tournaments, but he was just getting off the horrible starts and just couldn't come through at the end. We'll talk about the Travelers a little later. It was a little different for him there. But as a whole, he's struggled this year compared to what he has in the past, especially with his iron control. His iron control, he was always tops in the world. For the last 3 years, he's been number 1 and compared to the field in irons play. And this year, he's struggled with it. Why that comes up out of nowhere, if I had the answer to that, I'd be a billionaire many times over. I don't, unfortunately, but I do think you just got to push through, start with your fundamentals, and work your way back up towards where you think you should be as a golfer. And that's a different place for every one of us. Some people, are going to plateau at a 15 handicap. I think I'm right at about my plateau right now. I'm a 12.1. I don't see myself getting a whole lot better, especially now that I've already crested the hill over 50. But I'm hoping I do. But the long and the short of it is everybody's got a different sweet spot, so to speak. And the sweet spot for some is a 12 handicap like me, and for others it's a 20 handicap. And I think as soon as you come to accept that and you become happy with what you are as a golfer, I think I will probably forever be one that's spraying my driver all over God's creation. But I'm also think I'm always going to save strokes around the green because I play the short game well. So if you can become happy with that, I think it keeps you more enthusiastic about the game because you know that you're going to go through some ebbs and flows and you're going to see some low times, but you're also going to have those moments where you have a 434-yard par 4 that Jake parred today. We both parred, by the way. I was happy to say we both up-downed it for par. We were jokingly saying that that's probably the first and last time we will ever both par that hole. So just keep plugging away, Jake. It'll come back around.
I appreciate that. And yeah, it's been interesting because I was a competitive runner when I was in high school, and I said to Brett at dinner tonight that competition, that being a competitor, it comes out. And the problem is that I'm not playing against you. I'm always playing against me. And I'm really, really tough on myself. And I'm really tough as a competitor on myself. Because I didn't go into West Point to play the rest of the field. I went into West Point to play my game. And right now, my game isn't working. And so I get really frustrated with myself because I'm a competitor. And sometimes I forget that, hey, it's just a game. And it's been really tough on me mentally to deal with those things. And so it's good to have days like today where I have a couple holes where I'm like, okay, I do know what the heck I'm doing with this game. Most of the time, I'm not sure. But today, for a couple holes, I felt like I did. So that helps a little bit. I was disappointed in how I played overall, but I agree with you. I just got to keep swinging. I just got to keep going out after it. But I do need to take a step back, and I think this is something that's important that people need to do, is if you are struggling, don't keep doing the same thing. Take a step back and say, okay, what can I work on? What's that one thing I can work on? And we actually went out on the range on Monday, and he didn't hit any balls. He just worked with me on, hey, mostly spotting because I couldn't see where the ball was going. But he was helping me with my irons, and it helped. I'm not sure it helped once we got on the course and played, but that's a whole other thing about driving ranges versus playing an actual round. But taking the time to say, okay, there are some things I need to work on those fundamentals on the driving range, so hopefully they will translate to a round that you're playing, because that's super important to take that step back and say, okay, something's not working. Let's figure out what that is, and let's do it step by step. I didn't go there and hit my driver and my hybrids and my irons and go to the putting green. No, I spent a good probably half hour on my irons with a bucket of balls and said, okay, I'm going to try to fix this. And it seemed to help a little bit, but I've definitely got some more work to do.
Yeah, it's important to note that you can hit 1,000 balls on the range every week, unless it's pointed practice, meaning you got to work on something specific. It could be your stance, it could be your grip. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Meaning, if you need a swing change, if there's something that you're consistently doing wrong, it's time to change. Obviously, if you're getting the same results again and again and again from the way you feel comfortable swinging the club, then the way you're swinging the club is wrong. So you have to start from scratch sometimes. And I told Jake one of the most difficult things to do is you go out to the driving range and you want to work on everything. You want to pull 5, 6, 7 clubs out of your bag and you want to work on all of them, but you need to attack one part at a time. I talked to Jake about the distance control with your wedges, so that you can always be in 2-putt range after you hit a chip, whether you're on in regulation or you missed short, long, whatever. If you can plop it into the middle of the green, get yourself to 2-putt range, you're going to see a significant drop in your number of strokes. But unfortunately, most people want to just bash that driver as far as they can on the driving range, or hit a hybrid or irons or whatever. I think it's more important to go out and work on one little aspect of your game and hone that in, and then move to the next one after you've got that one semi-perfected, if there is such a thing in golf. I know I make the mistake myself. I don't hit driver for as long and as often as I'd like, because I like watching my 4-iron go 220 yards down the middle of the driving range. But it's a false sense of security, because there are a lot of holes if you want to par them, you got to hit driver, and I'm spraying mine all over. So I should be spending more time with it and thinking about all the different aspects of hitting a driver. And in Jake's case, he's got a few different things he needs to work on. His game's not completely broken. It's gone a little sideways, and we got to get it straightened back up again. We'll get there.
Yeah, and I do believe that. And I will say, if you are struggling, ask the guys you are playing with what they're seeing, because it's so hard to see what your swing is like, and it's so hard to see where you may be coming up with some issues. And you're really good at that with me, where you're just like, hey, you're lifting up out of the ball, or your tempo's not correct. Ask the guys you're playing with to look at what you're doing and say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit, can you help me out? And I think having guys that can do that for you is great, and it'll help you figure out where you should be working on some stuff. So I haven't thrown my bag away. I haven't thrown it into the lake. I haven't run over it. I haven't done anything. But you have a really funny joke you told me the other day that actually I can totally relate to.
So someone walked into the clubhouse, their local course, and they asked the clubhouse professional that was inside and said, "Do you guys have some kind of winch or crane or something to get my clubs out of the pond that's on the 14th hole?" And the guy looks at him and says, "Yeah, we've run into this a time or two before, so let's go out there and get them out of the lake." So they drove out and they got their equipment out and they pulled his clubs out of the lake, and the guy said, "Geez, thank you so much." And he pulled his keys out of his golf bag and he threw the golf clubs back in the lake. And he said, "Thank you very much," and he walked away. There are those points, folks, where we're that frustrated with the game where you just soon throw away the clubs. But I can assure you that's not the answer.
Yeah, and throwing your clubs isn't either. We have a good friend of ours who, unfortunately, has been missing a 6-iron for a couple years, and we know exactly what tree it's hanging out of. We check every time we go to that course to see if, by chance, maybe it fell out. I think that tree still has that 6-iron sitting in the top of it. He got frustrated. He thought he was throwing it down the fairway, let go of it too late. Next thing you know, it's probably
40, 50 feet up in a pine tree. Yeah. And by the way, that went further than his ball did with that previous shot. That's shout out to you, Tim Maynard.
Yeah, we love you, Tim. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about the fun I had this weekend, not all the misery. So we had the opportunity on Sunday to go to the Travelers, that's here in Saratoga, Travelers Championship. What a day. It was awesome. I had so much fun being in that environment, seeing that course, which was absolutely gorgeous, and seeing pros that I've only ever seen on TV. Now, I will tell you, Åberg's pretty damn tall. I was actually surprised by that. I knew he was tall, but when I actually walked up next to him when he was, I don't remember what hole he was teeing off on, I looked down and I'm like, oh, wow, he's up there. But, yeah, so what did you think of going there?
Well, Victor Åberg, as my wife said, is my man crush, which I completely disagree with, Aaron. Victor Åberg is am I saying, geez, Ludvig Åberg. I think I'm saying his first name wrong. But anyway, regardless.
How can you have a man crush on somebody you don't even know his name?
I know. He's my golf crush, and I will tell you why. I'm a huge proponent for pace of play. This guy does not screw around. He gets up, he surveys what's in front of him, he figures out what clubs he's going to hit, and he steps up, gets his stance, and he lets rip. And so the winner goes with the spoils. He hasn't won a bunch on tour, but he's very consistent golfer, and he doesn't drive anybody nuts behind him because he's always moving the pace of play along. You compare that with someone like Patrick Cantlay, who is the slowest golfer on tour. I think anybody would absolutely dread getting behind him. I would love him to give me a call and explain to me how you could possibly, regardless whether it's for money or not, how you could possibly be that slow on the golf course to the tune of, driving a bunch of people insane and, getting warned a bunch of times about pace of play timing. But anyway, I don't suspect that'll happen anytime soon because most guys that are slow always have some, built-in excuse as to why they have to play that slow. I love Åberg in the fact that he's very methodical, yet at the same time, he does it at a very quick pace. That's how I like to play golf. I don't overthink things a whole heck of a lot. I think at our amateur status that we're at for both of us, until you get closer down to being a scratch golfer, I don't, then it might matter. But for us amateurs, I don't think you can do anything but harm to yourself by overthinking a shot. You second guess the club you're using, you second guess your grip, you second guess, your backswing, your downswing, everything else. Are my shoulders level, so on and so forth. And it essentially will eat you alive if you become an overthinker. And, in many sports, they'll use the phrase paralysis by analysis. I don't think there's a better example than in golf.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't think I've seen him take a practice swing, not a full one. He has this little pattern where he does almost like a half swing, and then he steps into his stance and he hits. And it's so interesting to see him do that. We also got to see Cameron Young tee off on hole 1 and play hole 1. So that was kind of fun because that was somebody we recognized on the driving range. And then we got to actually see him tee off. I also saw Justin Thomas on the driving range. Got to see him hit a bunch of balls. And it was just really interesting to see the facilities. I mean, the facilities there are like unbelievable. Like, we have a driving range that, if we're lucky, is as wide as this bay. Their driving range was probably 3 holes wide. Like, it was crazy how big that practice area was.
Yeah, it had to be 250 yards wide anyway.
And then they had a putting green that several guys were working on. And that was interesting, too, is we actually got to see a caddy or several caddies come up onto the putting green, and then they were setting up drills for their player. And so the one guy was actually using what I would assume is typically a stimp reader.
A stimp reader, yeah,
And
the
so
same
he was
idea. Yeah.
rolling balls out, and then he was marking where they were all around this circle so he could actually work with his player to practice that area. So I'm assuming that was caddy. It might have just been a practice.
It was a caddy.
It was a caddy? Okay. And so it was really interesting to see. He was doing that, and there was another caddy up there that was working on a different hole on some stuff. So it was just interesting to see these, like, what goes into what they do before they get out on the course. Then they had a chipping and putting area that was really interesting. And then we were really surprised that before hole 1, they had another putting green there for them to kind of putt around before they would tee off. And we're like, that's kind of a strange place to have a putting green, but several of the guys were using it. Several of the guys were working there before they teed off. Obviously, it was really interesting to watch these guys hit crazy shots, meaning like long drives that I could never even fathom that I could ever do, and land it exactly where they wanted to land it. But part of the joke that we had going to this event was we wanted to see somebody shank it, and we did. We watched somebody shank.
We got to see Novak, whose first name is eluding me at the moment. It's driving me nuts. But anyway, we got to see him. I believe it was, hole 4 or 5, somewhere on that range. Pretty straightaway par 4. And he hit it to the far side of the adjacent fairway. He couldn't have missed it by, more than I've ever seen, like in person, obviously. But he shanked it as bad as you can shank it with a driver.
And you should have seen the 3 of us with the biggest smiles on our faces, because that's what we wanted to see, because they don't show that on TV. They don't show that these guys are human. It seems like they put everything exactly where they want it. But he did recover from that, and I don't know if he bogeyed the hole or how he did on it, but watching him hit the second shot, we were like, oh, okay, well, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal that he was over there. But it still was a shank, and that's what we were looking for.
It was a shank. It was a 320-yard or so shank, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I wish I could shank it 320 yards, but those days, those days were never there for me. But anyway, and he had to hit up and over the trees on the next one, and he hit a colossal iron. I remember we didn't see from our perspective whether or not it finished on the green. But regardless of whether or not he got a bogey or a par, it was pretty amazing seeing, one of the top players in the world. He's already won this year. Seeing somebody like that hit a shank that, your average, local course amateur would hit. It's pretty fun to watch that, because it lets you know that, like, yes, as Jake said, we're all human.
So it was really cool because they have these like fan experience areas where there's a bunch of different vendors, and you can talk to some different, like, what I'm assuming are like sponsors and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And then the concession stands were really quick. You got in and out, no issues with that. At one point, we decided to take a break. We had been walking around for a couple hours, and we decided to take a break, and we kind of climbed up the side of this hill, and we were able to see what they call the Golden Triangle, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is
14, 15, 16.
14, 15, 16. And so where we were sitting, that makes sense. Where we were sitting, we saw the end of 14's fairway. We couldn't see where they were teeing off because that was kind of around the corner, a little bit of a dog leg. But we could see that fairway and that approach. We could see them walk up to 15 and be able to tee off for that par 3, I believe it was.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah, it was a par 3. And then 17 is definitely a signature hole there. It goes over the water. It goes over the umbrella that's in the water to a green. So it was really neat to see that golden triangle and be able to just sit in a single spot and see all that. Plus, we could see hole 1 coming down into the green, and then we could actually see over on the side, we could see 18's tee off. So it was a really neat location because you could see so much stuff going on at once. We got there when gates opened, so we got to see a lot of the early guys tee off, which was fun, and didn't deal with tons of crowds and things like that. But as the day went on, it started getting more and more crowded because more and more people were coming in to see Scottie and Victor play that final twosome.
Yeah. We got greeted at the entrance gate by Ric Flair, I think it was, because he was screaming, "Woo!" about every 30 seconds, and then he'd scream out, "Welcome to the 2026 Travelers Championship." I got to say that the entire staff that they had there, not only were they super friendly, but they're also super efficient. Like Jake was saying, concession lines, but also merchandise lines. I didn't buy anything, but my Erin did, my wife, and Jake did, and they both got in and out of line really fast. And given the sheer volume of people, I did not expect that. So I'm assuming they must have had quite a few register, kiosk areas or whatever to check out. But I thought the whole thing was run like a very, well-run, tournament. There was a bunch of times where the players were going from tee box to fairway or crossing fairways or whatever, and they would have people with these like mobile ropes essentially to keep the fans away from the players who were trying to cross to hit their next shot. I thought that was really unique. I didn't realize that's something they did. I thought fans were, kind of able to stay right on their shoulder type of thing, but they kind of partition you off from them with these little, rope sections. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, and so we ended up leaving like mid-afternoon before Scottie and Victor teed off. We wanted to get on the road because obviously we needed to get home. But boy, am I glad we did, because they had a pop-up thunderstorm that was torrential downpour for about an hour or more that dropped over an inch of rain. Now, they were still out there playing. I don't think any of them looked happy about it, but they were still out there playing, and it wasn't until the lightning started to be an issue that they pulled everybody off the course. They had a delay, and they pulled all the fans off as well. And so on the way home, we were listening on the radio just to see how Scottie and Victor were doing and how some of the other players were doing. I know Matt Fitzpatrick was doing fairly well. He was moving up. There were a couple other players that were kind of in the mix. Morikawa ended up finishing with, 8 under for the day or something like that.
7 or 8, yeah, somewhere
7 or 8 under for the day. So he was kind of he was the first one in the clubhouse with a really good score. So he was kind of sitting there, and then the delay happened, and so we were able to get home, and I was able to turn on the TV and actually see the last couple holes with Victor and Scottie. Which, by the way, I didn't realize this when I saw him. I didn't know it was Victor, but when I turned the TV on, I'm like, oh, that was the guy with the white and purple shirt on the driving range as we were leaving. So I did get to see him in person. But really interesting delay. They went back out, and I still can't believe that they can move that amount of water off a course that quickly and let these guys play. Now, they had some standing water still in some places, because I know Victor took a relief at one point because he had standing water where he was. But he and Scottie went neck and neck, and they ended up tying for first place at the end of the round, but unfortunately it was so late they couldn't play their playoff hole. So they had to play their playoff hole on Monday, which is very, very rare for these tournaments. Normally they finish them up on Sunday even with the playoff holes. So very odd for them to play that playoff hole on Monday, and none of us got to see it live because we were out playing on Monday because we came home and said we want to play early, and we played early on Monday morning. I went home. I watched that. I was very disappointed. How did Scottie miss that birdie putt? He made so many par saves the day before, and then he misses a birdie putt and loses the tournament. I'll tell you, Scottie is struggling to get a win. Now, I'd be super happy to make millions of dollars to come in second place, but I know that he has come out and said second place is a loss.
When you get to their level where you've seen many, many, many millions, more than you can ever spend, it becomes about the trophies and it comes about the rankings and stuff like that. And so I think whether it's Tiger Woods before him or Scottie Scheffler or in the interim there was Brooks Koepka had a hot streak there for a couple of years. To all those guys, it becomes about winning tournaments and more importantly winning majors. They all really hone in on the majors, which we have coming up soon here with the Open Championship, which formerly was known as the British Open. I don't know why they decided to change that, but now they just call it the Open Championship, and it is what it is. But Scottie Scheffler has already won there. I'm sure he's honing in his game to get ready for some links golf because that's what he'll be playing overseas. But it'll be interesting to see, a lot of these top competitors who have been really on a hot streak lately, even if they haven't been winning, they've been top 5, top 10. Be interesting to see how that shakes out in a couple weeks here.
Now, I'm pretty sure when they get a trophy, they don't have to figure out where to put it.
This time I got a plaque, folks.
Yes, you
for
did.
West Point, I got a plaque. And Christian, shout out to Christian. He's the tour director for that region down there where we went to West Point. And he volunteered to ship me back the plaque with my name on it. Apparently they do that for all their members of their tour. They put their names on them. And I don't know if they always do plaques or whatever it is. Maybe sometimes they engrave stuff. But regardless, he was kind enough to do that, and he said he'd ship it to me. And I told him he's going to have to add an item to the shipping list because Jake left his thermos in the back of the golf cart, his Yeti thermos. And as you all know, Yetis are a prized commodity. Yes. Shout out to Yeti. They make a great product. And if they could sponsor our little go-around here, that'd be fantastic. I love Yeti. Yeah. Yeti's a good thing. But anyway, so Jake left it in the basket on the back of the golf cart. I called Christian. He was just wrapping things up there at the golf course. This is probably an hour after we left the course ourselves. And he was kind enough to find it. And he said he would ship it with my plaque. So within a few days here, I expect to see that in the mail. And that'll be interesting. Jake will get his thermos back, and I'll have my first ever, trophy with my actual name on it. That'll be kind of cool to see.
So how's that going to work? Because I know you use the other ones as, change holders. Are you going to, pile bills up on top of the plaque?
I've never been a big trophy plaque, anything like that kind of guy as far as showing them off or anything like that. But I did jokingly say to my wife, since she's got a couple wins this year, now I'm up to 5, I did say, maybe, geez, we're going to have to come up with somewhere to put these things where we can smile as we get old and crusty. So that'll be interesting.
So the Travelers Championship was a great experience. We highly recommend if you have the opportunity to go, you definitely should go, especially if you're a golfer and you love golf. It is a great experience, a great way to see the course, which, again, was absolutely gorgeous, and to see these players and to see how well they shoot. Oh, by the way, so again, going back to that final day on Monday, you could tell these two are pros and they are at a level that is elite. They both hit drives. They're literally the table length apart from each other on the fairway. I think Scottie hit first, hits it right next to the pin. I think it was 8 feet or something like that. Victor steps up, hits it just past the pin, spins it back to about 9-10 feet. Literally right next to each other. You're watching this going, not only are they pin hunting, but they are hitting the exact same shot. So anyway, if you get a chance, go on, and I'm sure it's on YouTube, watch the final hole. It was super impressive to see how they literally were next to each other the whole time. But again, how does Scottie miss that? It really, really irked me that he missed that putt. But good on Victor for that win. And then he did the row with all his Norwegian fans that were there, which is amazing that he had so many Norwegian fans there. That was pretty cool as well.
I'd like to give a big thank you to my niece, Alyssa, who got us the tickets. She works for Travelers Agency. She got us the tickets at a very, employee discount, essentially. Phenomenal, they're general admission, but they're phenomenal experience for us. It included the parking. And then my niece, Alicia, who lives out in West Hartford, it was only about 20 to 25 minutes from the course. She was kind enough to put us up for the night after we were done with the West Point tournament. We were pretty exhausted, but they had some nice icy cold beers ready for us and some hot pizza when we got there. So we got to put our heads on the pillows in a comfortable place, and on top of that, had some beer and pizza to go with. So that was a fantastic experience, and I'd like to thank both of them for doing that.
Yes, thank you both of you for that. That was a wonderful experience, and it may be something we do again, but I definitely want to see where we can go to a different PGA event, see a different course. So I'm looking forward to that.
The beauty of upstate New York here is that we have Bethpage Black is down on Long Island. It's 3.5 hours for us, but very popular tour stop. And some of these places are for men, some for women, some of them are for the senior tour. They just played Enjoy, the seniors did. Enjoy's out in Binghamton, New York, which is about 3 hours, I'd say, 3.5, somewhere around that range again. So we have a lot of opportunity around here. Shinnecock, which a lot of people know from, that's where they play the U.S. Open this year. That's in New York State as well. And there's one that I'm forgetting, and it's going to drive me crazy. But anyway, we have a lot of beautiful, beautiful PGA level courses here in New York State. So if you haven't golfed in New York State before, give us a shout here at the podcast and ask us, recommended courses and tell us your budget even if you want to. Because we can recommend a lot of courses. I just hit my 100th golf course played at West Point. I was really happy with that. So I've done a fair amount of travel golf, but I still, born and bred a New York golfer, and I will forever probably be that.
All right, so that's how our weekend went. Awesome weekend. But you know what time it is? It's time for Rule of the Day. So what do you got for us?
Well, today for the rule of the day, we're going to go with impediments on the golf course. And by impediments, I mean obstructions. So anything that's essentially a man-made obstruction. That could be a water bottle that someone left on the course. It could be a rake from a sand bunker is a good example. You get free relief from those. That is not something you are penalized to shop for. If it is a permanent structure, meaning the golf course built it with the intentions of being there, like a clubhouse or a storm shelter out in the middle of the course or something like that. Those are permanent structures. You do not get free relief from those. The ones that are most often people misconstrue them is they see PGA professionals get free relief from the bleachers and clubhouses and stuff like that, concession stands. Those are temporary structures, believe it or not, because that course does not normally have those, and I don't care what the course is, they do not normally have those obstructions in the way. That's why you see PGA professionals get the relief from those. The relief is really simple. For every one of them, as always, all drops are, or any relief is no closer to the hole, but it's full relief from in your stance. So the nearest point of full relief from your stance. So if you're on a cart path, for instance, you would step off the cart path to the first point you could, no closer to the hole, that puts you on terra firma, solid ground without being gravel under your feet or cart path under your feet or whatever. And then from that point, you put a pin in a tee in the ground to mark, where that point was. And then you get one full club length from there. Now, full club length, folks, that can be any club in your bag. So there's no point in pulling out your pitching wedge or your 60-degree wedge when you could use a driver, if it's advantageous to you. I was telling my wife that sometimes it's advantageous to hit it closer to where the full relief was versus the full club length. So you got to scope that area out, and you just have to drop it somewhere in that range. That's one club length. And then play it from there. But there is no penalty on that in any way, shape, or form.
All right, and so that's today's Rule of the Day. So I do want to do a special shout out to Blueprint Leadership Development and say thank you for being a sponsor of Divots Skins. If you want to learn more, you can go to the description where there'll be a link to the Blueprint Leadership Development website where you can learn more about what Rob Schauger does when he works with businesses. I also want to give a shout out to Don Frame from the USAM Tour. We talk about him a lot. We play with him a lot. We love his tour, and we really want to see it grow. So if you're interested, go to the description. There's a link to the USAM Tour and specifically the Albany region to find out more if you happen to be in our area. If not, look in your area to see what USAM Tour region is in your area. And lastly, I want to thank Dave, who owns the Luxury Box, and this is where we record and where we swing when the weather's bad, when it's winter time, and we just want to get our practice swings in so that we are ready for the next season. And if you're looking for somewhere to do that, he also has simulators that have other sports and other games and things like that. He also has a large area that has 4 bays that you can rent that allow you to do parties, gatherings, things like that. So if you're looking for something like that in the Lake George, Queensbury area, make sure you check out theluxurybox.net. And with that, I think we'll close off for tonight.
Never leave a birdie putt short.
Hey everyone, welcome to Divots Skins. What?
Divots Skins. I'll start that
I don't know where that came from.